Greetings. I am Dr. Graciela Canedo Livingston, Provost at Nebraska Wesleyan University. I want to welcome you to this year's presentation of Spooky Evenings. We here at Nebraska Wesleyan are excited and proud of this event that brings together scholars, artists, authors, and filmmakers to discuss the topic of horror in its various manifestations across the arts and the humanities. Professor Juan Jose Castaño Marquez and Dr. Matthew Jarvis have been working tirelessly to bring you the best scholarship in the field of horror through this unparalleled digital humanities event. I would like to acknowledge the generous support from the Nebraska Arts Council, Humanities Nebraska, and the Nebraska Cultural Endowment that helps make quality programming like Spooky Evenings possible. Again, welcome and enjoy this presentation of Spooky Evenings.
Tonight on Spooky Evenings, author Rachel Harrison presents her new work, Cackle. Welcome back, everyone, to Spooky Evenings, and welcome back, or should I say the return of Rachel Harrison. Welcome back, Rachel.
Thank you. I appreciate what you did there.
I won't be the only one, but as you've told me I'm the kickoff, I will be the first one. You're also in this like elite Spooky Evenings club of a return guest.
I'm very honored to be back.
We're super glad to have you, and we're super excited that we also have the sneak peek of Cackle. I know, everybody's showing off their cackles. You can tag Rachel Logic or at Spooky Evenings on social media,
yes,
and show us your copies of Cackle. When you go get them tomorrow, on sale tomorrow,
yes,
go get your copy of Cackle tomorrow. I'm really excited. I really enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed all the little spidery extras that Rachel crammed in her envelope for us as well.
Yeah, hopefully that didn't give you too much of a surprise when you open the package and just like a fake spider.
So Juan is all into insects and things, and so he was quite thrilled by the presence of plastic and sticker spiders. So you're going to privilege us with a sneak peek tonight. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I haven't done a reading in a while, so I'm a bit rusty, but I will give you all a tiny appetizer of Cackle.
I'll let you take it away, and I will sit here with my coffee and enjoy.
And you see my animals being very distracting, but I'm trying to concentrate. This is from the beginning of the book. The sky is a strange color, not quite red, but too violent to be orange. I search for the sun, imagine it tired and bitter, slouching away after another long shift. I find it hovering over New Jersey. Poor sun. Annie, Nadia whines behind me. You're bumming me out. Sorry, I say. I contort my mouth into what I think is a smile, but Nadia winces at the sight of it, so I'm guessing the attempt is unsuccessful. Girl, she says, pull it together. It's your birthday. I groan. all right, she says, roping her arm around me. Let's get you wasted. We dodge the bags of trash reclining on every curb, avoid the rogue dog turds swarming with flies, unashamed in the middle of the sidewalk. When I first moved to New York City 12 years ago, starry-eyed and energetic, a college freshman, didn't seem so dirty. I can't tell if it was because I was young then, charmed by the skyline, always looking up, or if it used to be cleaner. Here, Nadia says, putting her hands on my shoulders and ushering me into a random bar. It's almost chic. Draped bead chandeliers hang from a high ceiling. The place is crowded with couches, mismatched armchairs, stuffing sneaking out through straining seams. Nadia directs me to 2 stools in the corner where the counter disappears into the wall. Perfect, she purrs. She's wearing a low-cut leopard print jumpsuit, which at first I thought was a smidge much, but now we've received immediate attention from the bartender, so I'm beginning to appreciate her strategic fashion choice. She orders us vodka lemonades and tequila shots. I've been out with Nadia only once before at a karaoke fundraiser for our school that was near torture. She performed an earnest cover of Natalie Imbruglia's Torn. I sat squirming in the corner, anticipating a flood of secondhand embarrassment, but the crowd was surprisingly into it. I watch her now as she sticks her pink acrylics into the bowl of assorted nuts on the bar. She tilts her head to the side, searching for a specific nut, exposing her long, delicate neck. Her hair is dark and thick and falls down past her shoulders, curving like a chain of crescent moons. She's got false lashes that are in a constant flutter. She teaches biology. She's good at it too. At school, she doesn't wear a lick of makeup. All the students whisper about how she's the hottest teacher. Doesn't matter how old you get, the superlative will always be insulting when it's awarded to anyone but you. The bartender drops the shots in front of us. They're accompanied by a tiny plate with 2 lime wedges and a crusty salt shaker. Nadia lifts up one of the shots. To you and your new job. Oh, and fuck your ex. She takes her shot. I take mine too. The mention of Sam is like an ice pick to the sternum. I begin to count the bottles of liquor lined up behind the bar. Are there enough? In this bar, in this city, in the tri-state area? How much will it take? It's all happening, Nadia says, snapping her fingers as our cocktails arrive. New job, new city. It's not a city, I say. It's a small town no one's ever heard of. Yeah, she says, pausing to aggressively suck the remaining juice from her lime wedge. But that's how all romance movies start. You're going to move to this like small ass town and meet some brooding lumberjack, and he's going to be named Lucien and have a 6-pack even though he's a low-key alcoholic. He'll live in a trailer and have a tragic past. It'll be great. Sounds great, I say, my voice flat. She nudges me. Oh, come on, Annie, loosen up. Have some fun. It's your birthday. I wish she would stop reminding me of that. I hadn't planned on spending my 30th birthday with a coworker I barely know who just ate a bar cashew out of her cleavage, or drinking a vodka cocktail that's going down about as smooth as battery acid. Admittedly, it's not the worst. It's just not what I envisioned. I saw myself with Sam on vacation somewhere, butchering the French language while attempting to order food at a cafe in Montmartre in the shadow of the Sacré-Cœur, or in London contemplating paintings at the Tate Modern and having cream tea, then smuggling back Cadbury bars in our suitcases. Or a simple weekend trip to the Hudson Valley or Mystic, somewhere we could take the train and get a nice hotel room with a big tub and laze around in those cozy robes. Okay, Nadia says. What is it? Is it him? Are you thinking about him? Is it 30? Because 30 is not old, okay? She's 27. It's all of it, I say. I'm sorry. It was nice of you to come out with me. She raises an expertly shaped eyebrow. I told you all year we should go out. You were like, not about it. Look, I don't know you that well, but I know you're not a super social person. And it's easy not to be social when you like have a person at home who's there all the time. What I'm saying is basically, maybe this is a good thing for you. Maybe you can get out there, meet new people, live your life. I guess, I say. Unfortunately for me, getting out there and meeting new people are among my least favorite things. I've forgotten how. The years since college have eroded my social skills, and I'm shy to begin with. I prefer couch. I prefer familiarity. I prefer Sam. Here, she says. She reaches out for a small tea light candle and lifts it up, the yellow flame spasming, the wick decaying. Make a wish. You're serious? I ask her. In this moment, I do regret not going out with Nadia sooner. I bet she's a good friend. She seems like one of those people who are born knowing exactly who they are. Her entire personality written in the stars, set in concrete. Yes, she says, quick, before it burns out. I close my eyes and think. Stop there.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Thank you very much. I'm trying to think where to begin, because I swore to you I wouldn't spoil anything. If you've watched any of the summer episodes, that was something we reveled in, but we were not live. So I'm going to steer clear of spoiling anything and stick to some major themes that I find in Rachel's work, or at least I have so far. And I think the most major theme, of course, is the relationship between women as a predominant theme in your work. And what's interesting about that to me, especially, is that it's like in a post 2016 timeline of, particularly in horror, which, you know, we have certain, I think, correct presuppositions about, especially pre-2000 horror, that it's this almost boys club. And I say that very aware as a man sitting here talking to you. But the target audience seems to be shifting really quickly, and I think for the better, towards a more equity based audience between both men and women. So I'm wondering where you see yourself in relationship to that, and sort of perhaps what your experience has been in relationship to that, or if you think I'm completely wrong too. That's
no, I don't. I do think there's.
You're familiar.
I'm watching the cat sabotage slowly happen. And I didn't bring my phone in to text my husband, like, come get your daughter.
I'm waiting for it to climb the spider web.
You're going to be in so much trouble. She's like, no, I'm not. Sorry. I do think, and a lot of times people ask me, like, why do you think horror is having such a boom right now? And I think it's because there's a lot of different up and coming voices, and there's a lot of different stories being told. And for me, I'm going to write about any kind of relationship I find interesting and compelling. And I think it was encouraging for me after writing The Return, having a lot of different readers, male readers, be like, I liked it. I could relate to it. You know, there was things in here for me. I think a lot of times it's our own, like, well, are people going to want a horror book that's just about a lot of women just talking to each other? And if I were to think that way of like, am I going to be able to sell this book, or is there an audience for this book? I might have not written it. So I think in any genre, you have to write the book you would want to read, or write about what you're interested and passionate about, and it'll find a readership. And I think part of the reason that horror is like kind of having this, you know, people say, oh, it's trending. I don't think it's trending. I think it's just expanding. I think because in horror, people take risks, and people there's a lot of like brave creatives in this genre who are just willing to do what they want to do and trust that it'll find an audience. Like, I brought this up in another interview, so I don't want people like, I was talking about Malignant, but Malignant, like, James Wan was like, I'm going to make this crazy movie that I want to make. And like, whoever's going to dig it is going to dig it. And whoever is not going to dig it is going to talk about it on Twitter. So I think there's just like a bit of, making the art you want to make and not worrying so much about the audience. And I think because horror for so long was niche, a lot of people who are in horror have the mentality of like, well, whoever's going to find it's going to find it. So for me, I am a female writer and I do write a lot about female relationships, but I try not to come from the perspective like, oh, well, like I'm going to be the horror writer who's always writing about this type of relationship. There's a lot of different kinds of relationships and content I want to explore. So, yeah.
I mean, you do. I mean, what's interesting to me is because I mean, obviously, I read quite a bit of horror fiction over the summer with the Sunscream series that you were part of so graciously, and for one, I would say you wrote, of everything I read, which was a couple thousand pages, you wrote the most awkward scene I think I've maybe ever read, and I told you at the time that it actually like disturbed me so bad, and it wasn't even like the gory, creepy scene like at the end. It was the I'm alone in these people's house looking through their things.
Yeah.
And it just
it's cringe.
Yeah. And I mean, I was super affected by that in The Return. And I mean, it was just really truthful though. It spoke to like, I mean, an ungendered idea of obsession.
Yeah. And I think because, if I were to approach that scene where like, well, I don't know if the audience, like the reader will have any empathy for Elise because she's doing this like really messed up bad thing, then I wouldn't have written the scene. But the scene was very important because it needed to show what kind of headspace Elise was in and kind of be unafraid of having people judge my characters and just let my characters be who they are and who I wanted them to be. That scene is super awkward. I forgot about that. That's like, I would never, but I do have like, have you ever had dreams where like you wake up and there's nobody in the world and you can just go in people's houses?
No.
I have dreams like that all the
not.
time. So maybe like for me, it's like the fear of getting caught. I would never do it, but the idea of being able to like see how other people live, very intriguing to me.
I mean, I live in an apartment complex and people don't close their shutters or blinds, so I can kind of do that just walking around the parking
There's
lot.
people across the way just looking at me like, oh, what's she doing?
She's in front of her computer talking to herself a lot.
Yeah, very strange.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of those types of characters, you almost forget in some ways because you begin relating to the experience a lot. And I found that in both books. And again, I'm really struggling not to be specific because it's against my nature. But yeah, I find that you have this wonderful knack for fleshing out these characters through their actions in this very sort of unnerving way at times.
I think that's like, for me, a lot of to create effective horror, I need to bring the reader into a place where they feel whatever my protagonist is feeling. Because like what scares me might not necessarily scare my reader. But if I can pull my reader in and make them care enough about the stakes and about the character, then if the character's in a situation that's dicey, or if the character's scared, then the reader is going to be scared. It doesn't matter if like my protagonist is, afraid of clowns and the reader is not, which everyone's afraid of clowns. But if I can make the reader sympathetic enough to the main character, then they're going to be afraid because the character's afraid.
So, I mean, I think I asked you this summer, but I think Bear's asking again. What does scare you?
Pretty much everything.
Everything.
But yeah, I can, if I think on anything too long, I can be scared. And the unknown, not having control, lately death, which is is heavy. But
it has been omnipresent lately.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Thinking I've just found myself just being like, randomly thinking about death and how fragile life is. But a lot of things scare me. I think for the most part, I'm an anxious person. So if anything that I'm reading or consuming, if there's a lot of dread, if there's a lot of like something's going to happen, that kind of setup, that really gets to me because I can't sit in the unknown. That's a big struggle for me.
So, I mean, in terms of that, then, because we've talked a little bit about your inspirations for your experience within horror, which is interesting too, because I found out this summer some people are producers of horror, but not consumers of horror, which just never occurred to me as a thing. But you are a consumer. So what pockets of the unknown sort of first attracted you into that as a fear? And what ones do you still sort of return to, if again, you'll pardon the pun?
I think so. In my early experience, like when I was younger, it'd be a lot of like images would draw me to horror, like the image of Pennywise, or in Blair Witch Project, the image of the like stick,
Yeah,
the terrifying stick figure.
The 2016 one of that is real, because what it does, right?
Oh, really?
Have you
Is
not
there
seen the 2016 version? No. Oh, you need to watch you skip the second one and watch the 2016 version.
But I think I would respond very strongly to the visuals. But now I think the kind of slow burn, visceral horror really gets me. Some of the books lately that have, over the past few years, that have like stuck with me, Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss, which is tiny book, goes by quickly, but it just completely like transports you. And to be for me to kind of again feel like I'm sitting where the protagonist is sitting is very unnerving. And I just read a book a few months ago called Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cooper Smith. And that's another one where it's just very atmospheric. And so I feel like I'm there. It's so, I think when I was younger, it was more the visual, like that instant, like I'm seeing something that's unnerving and scaring me. And now it's like that kind of slow, I'm drawing you in, and now like you're in this moment. If you can like really get under my skin and make me feel like I'm someplace else, then that terrifies me. And I think that's hard to do. So I have a lot of respect for authors who can do that.
Last time in The Return, of course, your hotel was almost a character unto itself.
I like
that could evolve.
I like fun settings. There's in Cackle, there's another big set piece. I think that I come from a screenwriting background, so when I write, for me, I'm like I still kind of picture like, all right, well, what's the set going to be, and what's this going to be, and so it's just having something that's like visually interesting. I think lingering from that kind of instant, like, what are you seeing? What immediately can freak you out?
Now, I'm gonna. If you spoil something, that's fine. If I spoil something, I will hide under my desk and take the candelabra with me. So I'm trying very hard not to. To switch into like a more broad theme again, I don't think saying witches and Cackle is going to be a surprise. So I think we can safely say that. Your first book, it was almost like a fairy tale toward the end, as the monster is sort of like revealed, and we speculate on the different possibilities therein of what kind of being it could be, because it was sort of unique in its own way. But here it's a little bit more traditional. So did you want to go, was that an intentional move after writing something so much more fantastical, or?
Yeah, I definitely, Cackle's very different than The Return. And
Absolutely.
I kind of wanted to, that was kind of intentional. I think for me, I want to have I want to keep writing books. I want to write as many books as possible. And I didn't want to kind of like put myself in a corner or have people be like, I'm expecting the same thing every time. And I want to be able to have that freedom to kind of write what I want to write and just have people be like, I'm along for the ride, and kind of not know what to expect. So I actually think Cackle is more of a fairy tale. It's kind of me working out my vendetta against fairy tales. I was a kid in the 90s. I was raised on Beauty and the Beast was the first movie I saw in the movie theater. I was very young. So I kind of grew up with this, immersed in this like fairy tale narrative of like what I thought my life was going to be like. And, you end up in a relationship and find a romantic partner and you live happily ever after. And as I got older, I sort of became disenfranchised with that and found out like, even if you find a loving partner, like it's not going to solve all your problems. And so I was thinking a lot about that. And then I saw Midsummer in the theaters, and I was kind of like, I love folk horror. And I love that, like, this like dreamy setting. And it like, if you just like came into the movie at some point, you probably wouldn't know it was like a horror movie. But it is, it's a scary horror movie. So I was thinking about those things when I set out to write Cackle, this idea of, fairy tales and this kind of narrative that I was raised on, which is like, the only way to be happy is to end up in it, like with Prince Charming, and like the witches in the woods are evil because they live alone and are doing their own thing. And then also this like folk horror kind of backdrop. So those were the things that were kind of like floating around my head when I started to write it, but I kind of didn't know where it was going. So I knew I wanted to write something, different than The Return. I didn't want to like just kind of follow the same formula, but I didn't have like a specific intention for how I wanted to diverge. It sort of just happened on its own. I'd like to say, like I was so intentional and I planned everything, but I don't know what I'm doing. So that would be a lot.
We already talked about like when you're writing, you feel like you're enchanting a spell because you creep in and you mumble through your computer.
Yes. Yeah. I'm probably like a crazy person. Just muttering to myself and kind of acting things out.
What do you like when you conceive of a witch, just in general, not just in your text, like free association here? What comes to your mind?
Probably Madame Mim from Sword in the Stone. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, where I think of her pretty much every morning because there's that thing where she goes, "I hate sunshine," and pretty much every morning I think.
There's a line in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil where Luther Druggers says, "Some days you just can't face breakfast."
Ooh, I feel that.
I thought about that this morning.
Yeah. And so Madame Mim kind of, because she was probably the first witch who like, there's this moment where she like turns herself beautiful and then she kind of goes back to being like kind of like raggedy. And I thought that was interesting. That was something I clocked as a little girl because I was like, it's interesting that she could make herself beautiful, but she chooses not to be. Because I couldn't, again, being raised in the 90s, like I couldn't conceive of making that choice. So I think Madame Mim is an early one. And then Witch Hazel from Bugs Bunny, which I recently revisited Witch Hazel and I watched, it's the first episode of Looney Tunes that she's in. And towards the end of the episode, Bugs Bunny turns her, like puts magic powder on her and she turns into a bunny. And then Bugs Bunny goes up to her and he goes, "Hey, you going my way?" And she does her evil witch laugh. And get this, Bugs Bunny turns to the camera and goes, "Yeah, I know, but they're all witches on the inside." And I was like,
Wow.
Bugs, excuse me. And apparently they banned this episode in Canada because they were like, Bugs Bunny.
Wow. I need to look this one up. I don't know
It's
this
a
one.
great episode. I mean, it's Looney Tunes, so it's, but like
I thought it was going to
towards
be like the end of oh God, what's the movie with Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon when they're in drag?
Some Like It Hot.
Yeah, something like I thought you were going to say like the end of that when they're in like the boat and the guy's like, "Well, nobody's perfect," when Jack Lemmon pulls his wig off and he's a man.
Uh, it was kind of like, it's kind of like that kind of vibe in the moment, but I was just like, did Bugs Bunny really just call all
All
women
women
witches?
Yeah.
And he certainly did. And it was funny because I went into the episode just being like, it was last Halloween where I was like, like I'm going to watch some witchy stuff while I'm, working on my witch book. And I watched that episode and I like was eating a candy bar. And I remember just being like, and just like fell out of my mouth. I was like, I can't believe this. And I was like, I'm Googling this. And yeah, it turns out for a while it was the episode, they banned it in Canada, not in the United States though, because that's fine here.
Yeah, I show students some of the more wild wartime things that were produced by the studios that are remarkable, shall we
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
From Warner Brothers, of course, you have Tokyo Jokyo, which is pretty grotesque. And then Disney, of course, you've got the Education for Death, where you actually have an animated Hitler.
Is that the one with the gremlins on the wing?
No, this is it's all about this little German boy named Hans and how he's being raised to be a Nazi. And then at the end he dies and you see like this pan shop. It's like the really expensive Disney animation, not the cheap stuff, because the Department of War was footing the bill and they needed to make up for the bomb of Fantasia.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Yeah, I bet Disney's like, we never did this. It doesn't exist.
I know. We've had audio problems the last 2 nights. Now I'm waiting for Disney to send something,
Yeah.
like a drone or something.
There was
Right.
no Disney animated Hitler. That never
Right.
happened. We're gonna get like Mickey Mouse is gonna come to us tonight with like a knife. We're gonna wake up and he's gonna be like,
"You take it back, pal."
Yeah. If nobody hears from us tomorrow,
You know.
Yeah.
The Disney Illuminati got us.
Yeah. Mickey the Bounty Hunter.
Oh, man. I always tell students, like, I will ruin your childhood at some point during the semester.
It would happen.
It's interesting you brought up Beauty and the Beast, the 92 Disney film, as your first, because the horror movie was the big movie that came out that year was the Coppola Dracula. And I find them to be the same movie.
Yeah.
It's also the year before you had Silence of the Lambs, and I find that to be the same movie.
Wow, you just blew my mind with that. I need to have a triple feature.
Yeah, I think you'll find a lot of weird similarities. The worst one is the dancing scene in Beauty and the Beast, and the dancing scene in Dracula lines up pretty well. Yeah,
I think Dracula's. I'm a big Winona fan, so I like and I think Gary Oldman is good in it too. But I need to revisit that one. I'll have to add that to my.
It
October
is
viewing.
on YouTube. Just throw that out there.
That's bad because
I
now
didn't
I'm gonna
put it there, but it is there.
Now I'm gonna pull it up when I'm like get distracted when I'm working. I'm just gonna like I'll just pull up the Dracula on YouTube.
What was your first exposure to a witch?
Probably just like a Halloween decoration witch.
Okay.
I can't, or fairy tales. I mean, maybe like Snow White.
Okay.
The Evil Queen. I think it's interesting because they're just sort of this figure in society. You grow up and you just know what a witch is.
Yeah.
But I think witches tend to be associated with evil.
Mm-hmm.
I think, maybe Glinda the Good Witch, but you don't really remember Glinda. You remember
she's the worst witch of them all, right? Because she could have helped her out right at the beginning, but it was like, no, you need to go on this quest.
Yeah, she just kind of waves her wand around, and it's thanks a lot. And she's not particularly compelling.
No, and she's so not helpful.
Yeah. And the other one has like, she's green and has the cool hat.
John Waters talks about wanting to turn into her as he gets older.
Who
He's
does?
like John Waters. He's like, I've already got the green skin.
There's something cool about, like, there's something interesting and compelling about her, even though she's the villain.
Well, have you seen Wicked?
I have not. I'm not.
The line in Wicked, which I think undoes the entirety of that of the Fleming film, is, who steals a dead woman's shoes?
Yeah. See, this is the thing. The death of nuance is really made these witches wicked. Yeah, it's her sister. She dropped a house on her sister. I'd be pissed too. She is perfectly in her rights to be vengeful. I think the idea of the witch is pretty interesting, because I think generally when you think of a witch, you think of like an old crone. You don't I think it was more me thinking about like the trope of the witch than it was like more than anything else. But I did, when I was in college, I went to college in Boston, and I lived near Salem. So we'd go to Salem, me and my friends. We'd be like, whenever we had like boy problems, we'd go get our tarot read. But I always loved Salem because when I was younger, I lived in Jersey, and like occasionally we'd go up to Boston and take trips to Salem. So I was always, as much as I wasn't like, this isn't technically witches. I mean, accusations of witchcraft, but they weren't actually witches. But I was always obsessed with the Salem witch trials. That I went to the museum when I was younger, when I was probably like 7. And it's this like wonderfully horrible museum in Salem where it's like wax figures, like bad wax figures. And like the scenes illuminate around you, and there's like scary voiceover. And so it traumatized me as a child, but I was also obsessed with it. And so when we got home, I was like, Mom, can we go to like, not a Blockbuster. It was like the old fashioned like VHS rental store.
Yeah.
And I remember we went, and my mom let me pick out Crucible, the Crucible.
Winona Ryder again.
With Winona. And yeah. And so I watched that when I was, under 10, and I became obsessed with
so that was
the Crucible and Salem.
Oh my.
Yeah. I don't know why. I was so into that. I think just because it was so dramatic, and I was like a very dramatic child. I was just like,
yeah, I mean,
John Proctor's innocent.
His let me have my name speech.
Yeah, right? His little monologue at the end.
And he's just like so disgusted. And now, like, knowing Daniel Day-Lewis, he actually probably hadn't brushed his teeth in like 10 weeks or something to get me in character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently rewatched that myself, and yeah, that's all I could think about for like a day was what his teeth looked like.
Yeah, what he must have smelled like.
Yeah,
you can kind of smell him through the screen.
His wife directed that as well.
Really?
Well, because he's married to Arthur Miller's daughter, and Arthur Miller wrote The Crucible.
Well, I think I might have known that.
Rebecca, that's her name, Rebecca Miller. Which is a very crucible name.
Huh?
Which is a very crucible Salem name.
I saw Goody Miller with the devil. So I think it's funny because most of anything that I write, I'm like, where did this come from? And then if I like kind of look back on my life a little bit more, I'm like, oh yeah. Like I probably wrote a witch book because I used to go to Salem all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really formative for you. You went when you were young, you went in your adolescence, and then you were fixated on the Crucible, and then in college you would return to Salem to imbibe and to get your tarot read.
Yeah, my friends were there over the weekend, and they were taking picture with Cackle. They had a copy of Cackle, so they were like, We brought it to the homeland.
I saw the Pennywise in front of Stephen King's house. What was the
one
story with that?
Well, it was one of the friends who was in Salem on Saturday. On Sunday, she went to, I think it's Bangor. She took the picture in front of Stephen King's house, and Pennywise was there. I stare at that picture. I'm just like,
like all of my worlds have come together at last.
Yeah.
Like I've peaked. I've got it's just all
I definitely downhill. To see Pennywise holding my book in front of Stephen King's house, I'm good.
You also just have to wonder how frequently is Pennywise out there, and are there others? Like, is the master out there from Salem's Lot? And
they're just kind of roaming around.
Yeah, just like in Times Square or out in front of the Ramen Chinese Theater.
The Pennywise looked super legit. Like that was a great costume. It wasn't like I've got this at Party City costume. It was like I put a lot into this.
No, I thought you had staged it when I saw it because I was like,
no.
I've stumbled on it on Twitter.
I was at my house in my sweatpants, and my dear, lovely, angelic friend, who's a great photographer, was out there being like, "Have you heard of this book by my friend?" So I have very good friends. Nice. Maybe why I write about friendship so much.
It could be. Yeah, I mean that goes back to what we were initially talking about here. So you've listed a couple animated witches.
Yes.
Do we have any witches like either from life or non-animated witches, perhaps either from fiction or from film, that have inspired you or that you have also drawn source from?
I think like there's The Witch that I forget when that came out. I feel like
2015.
Everything. Yeah. That was again, it kind of is like the link between like the Salem, my youth, and like an actual witch. But I think for me a lot, like my idea of a witch was a bit cartoonish. Okay. And that's kind of what I was sort of deconstructing in Cackle, but I think Cackle is a bit, I don't want to call my book cartoonish. It's just not, it's like, it's a little bit, it's more like idyllic. Like there's a certain romanticism about the setting and certain things that happen, where it maybe whimsical is the better word than cartoonish. There's just I wanted there to be a little bit of like fun magic, and it's still grounded in reality, but it's not like the reality we live in, the cold, dark, sad reality we've all been in.
No, I mean, it's interesting because there are so many different ways that I've seen magic depicted, right? And it really depends. Like you were saying, the Eggers movie from 2015, right? That's I don't know, a brutally realistic almost representation of magic. There's other ones where magic like comes at a cost physically. Rafe Fiennes was in a version where he played Merlin, and like he had like carve runes into his face and things to cast spells, and somebody asked him why he went through so much suffering. He's like, because I like how it feels. It was one of the most disturbing moments I've ever seen in anything.
Of course, he's Rafe Fiennes.
Well, yeah.
He who must not be named.
Oh, not Rafe, his brother Joseph Fiennes. Sorry, not Rafe.
Oh, one of the fun. They both are gluttons for punishment.
They look really
apparently.
Similar too. I mean, I know they're brothers, but they look almost twin-like at times.
Yeah.
Thank you for catching that, because I would have gone the other way. And then you see this where it's just like, oh, alakazam, and something happens, and I think you found your own version of that too.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want it to be like it's still horror, so like it's not going to be like an easy wave of the wand. But the return is very dark and heavy, and I just wasn't in that headspace for, like, that wasn't the right vibe for this book. I still consider it horror, but I don't, it's not quite as intense or heavy or, emotionally demanding. I think it's a little bit more fun.
Oh yeah, I mean the return definitely speeds toward this penultimate scene where it's just like, and it's like, oh wow, because you get these pockets that are, distressing, and of course the moment I found super distressing happens about halfway through, but like the true like visceral aspects of what's going on, like really all of a sudden are upon you. Whereas this one, I do think you have a lot more of whimsy, I guess.
Yeah.
To it.
I'm not getting soft because my next book is intense.
Go on.
But, huh?
Go on.
Well, it's a werewolf book, so there's
Okay.
going to be some, body horror. Like we're back to the hunger for meat. It's still fun, like it's still my voice, but it's less like we're having lattes at the farmer's market with like my mysterious friend than Cackle is.
Right.
But yeah, I think just I'm kind of grateful that this book is coming out at this particular time. Even though I couldn't have predicted like how things would be or, how I would be feeling. But lately I like very sensitive to like intense, heavy things. Like, did you watch Midnight Mass?
All right. So you are the third guest in a row.
Really?
Third guest wait. Third guest in a row to tell me I need to watch this. One keeps telling me I need to watch it. Obviously, I have had very little watch time.
Yeah. Well,
I started it last night, so I'm halfway through the first episode.
But and I think all like the Hill House shows too were like emotionally intense. And I don't know why I went into it being like, yeah, I can handle this. But I was like, got a few episodes in, I was like, I need to like go wrap myself in a blanket. And
I think that's why like Bridgerton was so successful over Christmas last year, because everybody's like, it's so light and just don't need to think at all.
I think it's nice to have that kind of balance where it's like, I can watch Midnight Mass, but then I can go watch Bake Off. Like I think Cackle is kind of in a good middle ground where like it's not going to emotionally destroy you, but like you're going to have a little bit of like warm, cozy, and a little bit of substance, and some creepy shit and some spiders.
Yeah, I didn't have the ethical dilemmas in Cackle that you put forward in the return.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. It's kind of like a self-discovery journey for the protagonist, and just figuring out who you are and who you want to be, and finding the confidence to do that. It's feel-good horror.
Feel-good horror. I like feel-good. There's some really good feel-good horror out there. Have you seen Slacks?
Slacks?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
It's about a haunted pair of blue jeans.
I'm in love. I love that concept.
And it's like inside like Abercrombie in the 90s, not Abercrombie today, but like the pretension of Abercrombie in the 90s. And they're restocking the shelves and being terrorized by this haunted pair of blue jeans.
That I just fell in love. That is genius. It's a movie?
Yeah, it's on Shudder.
I can't wait. I can't wait to watch this.
It's and like there's a vlogger and things involved. It's every like satisfying thing you like don't want to admit that you went in horror.
I want it. I want it bad. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
whoever made that is.
There's another one you might like called Porno, and it's about these kids who work in a movie theater, just a regular movie theater, but they find like a sub basement movie theater in it, and they release like a demon because they watch this movie they think is a porno, but it's actually like a satanic ritual.
See, this is it. Like this is a like a little like subgenre that I want to live in, you know?
I think you do. Like I think
Yeah.
you may.
Yeah. After midnight mass, like
Yeah.
I
I
can't
mean, Midnight
handle.
Mass begins heavy, right? No spoilers. Midnight Mass begins with a person dying from a car crash. Like that's not a
Yeah.
spoiler.
I mean, any of like the Hill House stuff too, when you like look back on it, you're like, I think maybe I'm just slowly getting a little bit more like sensitive to what I consume. But yeah, I was like, and also I binged it because I was like, I'm gonna be really busy in October. So I like need to like watch it all this weekend now before I get busy with my book coming out. So I watched like 4.5 episodes and I was like, it was too much. I should have paced myself. It was too much.
I don't even know
So it
what you
was
do after that.
partially my own fault. Yeah.
Now you need to go watch Slacks and bring
Yeah.
yourself out of it.
Yes. Slacks and pornos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're both on Shudder.
Yeah. Those are my fine. If I'm a good girl this week and finish all the work that I have to do, then I will. Those are my weekend plans.
Okay. So you've mentioned something interesting, and you mentioned something before we went on air. So now I'm curious. Are you just in terms of how you're proceeding through your bibliography here, are you consciously making these decisions like I need to push myself towards one thing that is different, or I need to challenge myself in a different way because I don't want to be locked in, or just because I want to challenge myself in that way?
It's pretty much just because I want to challenge myself. Um, I I think it's important for me to keep things interesting for myself. And I'm not going to be motivated to do the same thing twice. I have to be really, really intrigued by an idea and also a little bit scared by it if I'm going to be like, because it's a lot of work writing these books. So I need it to be something that can sustain me for the time it takes to write it and then get into edits and then, talk about it. It needs to be, if I'm doing something that I feel is similar, if I'm not pushing myself, I'm not going to be able to have the stamina to do the things I need to do to make it successful and to execute on my idea. So yeah, I think, and I always want to challenge myself and become a better writer and write better books. And if you're not trying to be better than what you're doing.
Are you one of these people who thinks like in terms of a book a year? I've heard this. This is a new concept to me in the last 6 months, and it just
um I would like to. I would like to keep churning out content. I love to do it. So as long as and right now I have the opportunity to do it, so I'm going to take advantage and make the most of it. And yeah, I feel a little bit like if I'm living the dream right now, I want to do everything I can to keep living the dream. And I write short stories too, and just to be able to it's like the great joy of my life to be able to write and to be in this genre and get to know all these amazing people in the horror community. So hell yeah, I'm gonna do everything. I write a little bit like my life depends on it because I
and it does.
love what I'm doing. Yeah. So
let me ask you a more like technical question. I don't tend to ask that many technical questions, but I am curious just from having talked to different people. I was talking to Richard Chismar a couple nights ago, and I'm curious for you, how did you come to be involved with Berkeley? And sort of if you could talk a little bit about that relationship, and both in terms of like the struggle of finding the publisher to go forward with your first two books. I don't know about your third, but
yeah, it's at Berkeley. My next
Okay.
first two Berkeley, next two.
So
So hopefully,
oh, you got
hopefully I'm
what's the fourth one about? We know the third's about werewolves.
the fourth one. We'll find out. When I know, you'll know. I actually have a pretty interesting, and on paper it sounds annoying, publishing story. I wrote a draft of The Return, and then in fall 2018, there's a Twitter pitch contest called Pit Dark. It was the night before and I was waffling. I was like, do I want to do this? Should I just query? Like, I know querying is like the traditional route. But I thought, why don't I just go for it? And I took the day off work. I worked at a big bank. And I was like, I'm going to play hooky. And like, if it doesn't work out, I'll have a nice fall day. I'll go get a pumpkin spice latte, take a walk, around Brooklyn.
Go to Salem.
Be very basic. And I tweeted
Are you
out,
in Brooklyn now?
Not anymore.
Okay.
I moved March 2020,
Okay.
which was fun. So I did the Twitter pitch contest, and that's how I sent my manuscript that day to my future agent. She read it that weekend on that Sun. So the Twitter pitch contest was on Thursday. On Sunday, she sent me a message like, can we meet? We went and got drinks, and it was like, you're my dream agent. Like, she's just so brilliant and just the best. And we linked up, and then, I think 2 weeks later I was on submission, and it went to my editor at Berkeley. And it was like years of like trying to get better at writing and writing drafts and, feeling like maybe this will never happen. And then like within a month, I had a book deal. So
that's crazy.
It sounds really annoying because it's not like me. Like it doesn't show the full like decade of stumbling and working jobs I hated and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's that whole, what do they call it? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, that whole thing. So it's persistence and preparation and
so
definitely luck.
I'm going to do a weird follow-up here. In The Return, you cast shade at people of Buffalo. And in Cackle, you begin by casting shade at New Jersey.
Well,
has this ever come back up?
I'm from New Jersey, so I can cast shade.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I love New Jersey and I love Buffalo. I think the reason I cast shade, because I live in Rochester now, I moved from Brooklyn to Rochester.
Okay.
The reason I cast shade in Buffalo was because I was working out my own leaving New York anxiety through Elise, because I knew I wasn't going to live in, I couldn't afford to live in Brooklyn forever. So I knew I was going to have to leave, and I knew I would probably end up in Western New York. So I was kind of working out my own resistance to leaving through the book. And now I live in Western New York and I love it and it's wonderful. But that's what that was. And me casting shit. It's New Jersey. Come on. I did get an angry message from somebody.
I wondered.
Who was because my bio for The Return was born and raised in the weird state of New Jersey, which Weird New Jersey is a book and a magazine, and was part of my youth and my childhood. So it was like a throwback to that. And somebody messaged me. They were very offended that I called New Jersey weird. And so I was like, I didn't respond because it was one of those messages, but it was like, did you not read the bio? I'm from there. I'm not you have to have a sense of humor if you're from New Jersey. But yeah, so I kind of doubled down on it in Cackle, whereas I'm just going to shade it off the back.
Right off the front too. You're feeling bad for the sun for having to shine on New Jersey.
Listen, if you're from the dirty Jersey, you have to have a sense of humor.
I was just so curious. I mean, you were a lot harsher, I feel like, toward Buffalo and
yeah, that was me working out my personal issues. So I apologize to Buffalonians. I love Buffalo. It's great.
So to finish up here, just some more generic questions for you. What will you? I mean, I know you'll be doing a lot of these interviews, podcasts, and such to promote Cackle over the course of the Halloween and spooky seasons here. But what will you be doing for fun during this time? Not, I mean, not that
Uh,
this isn't fun. I'm sure you're having the time of your life, but
this is fun because I'm in the thick of edits for my third book, so
Mm,
I won't have a ton of time for fun. I did go to a farm last weekend. I had my farm weekend where we did the corn maze
okay.
and all that. So I got a cookie that looked like a ghost. So that was fun. um, I'm trying to think if I have any other non-book plans. I think there's a place up here called Genesee Country Village and Museum, and it was actually the inspiration. I have a short story called The Veil. It's an audio story. It's an Audible original. Um, Genesee Country Village and Museum is the inspiration behind the Living History Museum in The Veil. It's this museum where they took like all of these houses from um, the 18th and 19th century and like set them up so it's a little village. And there are people who work in the or volunteer in the houses, and they're dressed up in period clothing, and they're actually doing like they're churning butter
Mhm.
that they use to like sell in the museum, or they're like, you know, dyeing yarn that they're gonna knit into sweaters to like it's like all self-sustaining. Like they make barrels that they'll like put whiskey in. But there is the first time I went there, the first house I walked in, I turned and there was a coffin in the parlor, and I was like, and I turn around and there's a woman who's in like Victorian mourning garb, and she's like, "Welcome to the death house," and I was like, because I didn't know. I thought like everybody there was going to be, churning butter. I didn't know that there was a death house. But we're going back there, I
Okay.
think, either in 2 weeks. So that's my fun plan. I'll revisit the site of the death house and the inspiration for the veil. So I'm looking
Okay.
forward to that.
Are you dressing up for Halloween?
I don't have a costume. So I mean, maybe I'll have to. Costumes are a lot. You have to like. I feel like I always have a bunch of really great ideas. My husband has always wanted to go as Harry and Marv from Home Alone.
Okay.
So maybe we'll do that this year.
Okay.
I'll need like a gold tooth. I
Yeah.
got my beanie.
Yeah. Where are they? The sticky bandit.
Yeah, the sticky bandits. Oh, no, they're the wet bandits in the first one.
Oh yeah,
And then in the
they've got
second, in Home
yeah,
Alone,
where he's
and
stealing
then
from the
yeah,
Santas.
he's got the tape. Yeah, so we'll maybe that's this year's that year. But yeah, I don't know if we'll go anywhere because of
Yeah.
the fact that
Well, I didn't know if you had one of these lined up for Halloween and you just be in costume.
yeah, that if I had one of these lined up, I'd have to be something else, or I would just have to have my husband. So because if it's a couple's costume and you're just alone,
Yeah.
it'd be like, why are you Joe Pesci?
He could be a spider. He could just be behind you, climbing.
Yeah, I could be Sophie.
Yeah.
Get like a nice like wig, black dress.
See?
Is it annoying to like be like I'm my own character from my own book? Is that insufferable?
No, because you have your own book, so you can do that if you want to.
I like the sound of that.
And I'm a doctor, so it has to be true.
Yeah. Are you dressing up?
I'll be right here. I'll be interviewing Lisa Morton, who is the Halloween expert, the 6-time Bram Stoker Award winner. And then we'll be screening The Exorcist.
So are you going to dress up?
I will be playing Dr. Jarvis.
You can get away with it because you're a doctor.
Yeah, sure. I can put the barong mask on, maybe. That's
Yeah.
it is a mask.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, then, will you be expecting trick-or-treaters? What is your view then on what will you give out? Will you give out whole candy bars? What is Rachel Harrison's
I live in
house?
an apartment complex, and there's
So
no children. So I'm probably getting a house next summer. I think that's the slow goal. So I'll be very much looking forward to having trick-or-treaters, because I think that is my dream in life, to be able to like dress up and see all these cute kids in their costumes and give out candy. that I would give out king size. Well, it depends how much foot traffic you get.
Yeah.
'Cause those are
I
those
wouldn't go ahead and
Halloween
commit to
candy is
king size.
expensive. It's at the store the other day. It was like $14 a bag. I was like, can't handle this inflation. I don't remember it
Yeah,
always being
the
like
two
that.
Reese's pumpkins, $2. That's
It's a racket.
yeah.
I'd make homemade candy, but they'll be like, don't go to that witch's house. There's razor blades in her cookies.
Oh man. So I guess the only thing left to do now, since we've had you on for your other two books, is to preemptively invite you on for 2022 to talk about the werewolf book.
I would love to.
And we'd love to have you back.
Well,
I'm going to once again encourage everybody to go out tomorrow when it's available, because it is Cackle Eve. And my spine does not look like that, so I won't show off my spine. Mine says do not distribute on it. Which it kind of says here too. So go out and buy Cackle on bookshelves tomorrow on Amazon, anywhere that you buy your books. Go buy Cackle by Rachel Harrison. And after you get done buying Cackle and devouring it, tune in with us tomorrow evening for Lawrence Rickles, the author of The Vampire Lectures. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, stay spooky. Thank you so much, Rachel. Always great to get to chat with you.
yeah, this was so fun. It was a great way to kick off the week, and I'm grateful to you, because if I weren't talking to you, I'd just be sitting around being nervous. So
well, hopefully this helped you. I don't know, because I've heard so much, because obviously I'm not like a traditional book podcaster or anything, and I didn't realize how untraditional of one I guess I am.
what is traditional anyway?
I don't know. I just heard so many different weird stories all summer long. But yeah, so and this one was weird for me, because like normally I'm used to like, well, on page 100. And
yeah.
but I really enjoyed it. It was because I didn't know what to expect, because we hadn't really talked about it, and so I was surprised as I went through it. And again, people can hear me right now, so I'm not going to give anything away. But no, I was really, really pleased and enjoyed it thoroughly. I do like how you write characters, and I really like how you write locations.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm again. It's a little nerve-wracking, because as much as I was like, I want to set out to like do something different, it's scary to do something different, because people are going to come in with certain expectations, and so I'm a little nervous. I'm excited, but we'll see what
I think it's going to be a good. I mean, what do I know? But like, I like it.
You're a doctor. You know a lot
About a narrow range, but yeah, I think it's going to be quite popular. That's going to be my tea leaf